It's good day to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's your boy, Millsy. Back with Home Town Commander, back for another episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I brew in version 1.0 decklist to the commander in front of us on my quest out brew the magic world. You know the motto, baby. It's ABB, always be brewing, and that's what we're back to do today. The deck list is going to be down in the description for you below. As always, I'd really appreciate it if you could interact with the video, like, comment, subscribe, consider checking out all that YouTube stuff. I'd appreciate it. But today, we're finishing off Jeskai Week, and I felt like there was no better way to finish off Jeskai Week, mainly because we're doing all the commanders in alphabetical order, to end with Zurgo and Ojutai. Of course, a Tarkir commander and a Jeskai commander that cares about dragons. Felt that was only right with all the new support. A 5-mana 4/4 with flying and haste, and has hexproof as long as it came in this turn. And whenever one or more of our dragons deal combat damage to a player or battle, we get to look at the top 3 cards of our library. We can put one of them into our hand and the rest on the bottom. And then we can return one of those dragons to our hand. It's a very interesting ability because there's a lot of ways we can take advantage of this. I think probably the most logical way to take advantage of it is caring about dragons entering, or dragons have abilities when they enter. We can bounce them back to our hand, right? Have them happen more than once. I think we want to give haste to our boards, but replay those dragons, like them attacking, get them bouncing again. And just some other ideas of how to like manipulate getting our dragons in and putting them back to our hands, take advantage of, I don't know, maybe abilities that may have happened to make them go elsewhere. You know, there's a lot of ways we can mess around with that. I want to say a quick shout out to the members. Thank you so much for being a member of the channel. If you're interested in seeing all of our videos early for just $1 a month, check it out down below. But alright, we're in Jeskai and we're in dragons, so we're good because we're in red, right? Red has the primary source of a lot of dragons. But being in Jeskai, we do get some fun options. I always like Ancient Gold Dragon. It's not a top tier dragon, flying lifelink haste, but I like it. It's a fun thing. It's a nice potential bounce for Zurgo and Ojutai if you want it. Astral Dragon is an example of a dragon that has a killer ETB ability, and something we'd want to bounce with Zurgo and Ojutai. When it comes in, you make 2 tokens that are copies of a non-creature permanent. Not even yours, just anyone's non-creature permanent, and they're 3/3 dragons. This is really fun. You can get your own mana rock. You get something like Dragon Tempest for just a ton of fun. There's a lot of things you could get with Astral Dragon, and again, it's one of those ones we kind of want to bounce, because then play it again and get more copies. Deceptive Frostkite can come in as a copy of any creature, power 4 or greater, we control, except it's a dragon as well. Again, most time it's going to copy dragons, but it's nice to have that option. Furkrag, is an Izzet dragon that was printed in Baldur's Gate. Whenever one or more dragons we control attack an opponent, we gold a target creature that player controls. And then whenever a creature deals damage to one of our opponents, if that creature had to attack this combat, we get a counter on Furkrag and draw a card. So again, forcing our opponents to attack. If they connect, right, we're getting some card draw for Furkrag. Gainax is probably one of the other reasons we want to bounce dragons, replay them. Whenever it or another dragon comes in, we make a treasure. So it can help us make treasures over the course of the turn. Goldlust Triad has Myriad, just allowing multiple copies of it to attack everybody, right? And then whenever it deals combat damage to a player, we make a treasure. So we got some dragons that can make treasures. Same thing with something like Goldspan Dragon. Whenever it attacks or becomes the target of a spell, we make a treasure, and treasure sack for 2 mana instead of 1. Again, it has haste, so again, it is nice to have these dragons that have haste, so we can get them in and get them attacking. Jeskai Shrine Keeper, maybe probably a little expensive for what it really is, having flying and haste, but whenever it hits a player, we gain life and draw a card. Again, just an option in these colors. It's always fun to try these new things out when we get them. Lathless, of course, making a dragon token whenever another dragon comes in. Another reason to want to bounce those dragons back. Meringue River Regent, another dragon we'd want to bounce. Whenever it comes in, we return up to 2 other target non-land permanents to those owner's hands. Could be ours, could be our opponents. Again, just some nice bounce of our opponent's things. Scourge of Valkus, whenever it or another dragon comes in, it deals X to any target, where X is the number of dragons you control. Again, this will actually help also get made off of things like Lathless making dragon tokens, or like Utvara Hellkite, right, that makes us tokens when we attack. But a very key ability, and again, a reason why we want to replay our dragons. Sunscorch Regent, whenever an opponent casts a spell, it gets a counter and we gain a life. Again, a good way to grow our dragon, make it a real threat. Thundermane Dragon lets us look at the top and cast creatures with power 4 or greater off the top, and it gives them haste if we do. Good way to get some extra dragons in. Utvara, like I said, makes those 6/6 dragons whenever a dragon we control attacks. if you think about it, it kind of makes it better, right? Because we can attack with a dragon, bounce it back to our hand, we still have a dragon hanging around, right? For the purposes of blocking and other abilities. And then Wrathful Red Dragon. Whenever a dragon we control is dealt damage, it deals damage to any target that isn't a dragon. Fun way to bounce that damage back to your opponents or take out key creatures, whatever you might need. I think the best way to take advantage of Zurgo and Ojutai is make sure our dragons can attack the turn they come in, right? Making sure they're getting into real damage and real benefit the turn they come in. You know, Dragon Tempest is probably the easiest example, having that Scourge of Valkus type trigger on it, but also just gives all your flyers haste when they come in. Frostcliff Siege gives that haste and trample out, or we could draw cards whenever our creatures hit a player. I think I still like the trample and haste, even though some of our dragons already have haste, just because most of the time it's going to help. Things like those tokens we're making off of Lathless just come in with haste. But I think the card I would want to see the most in this deck, and the card I think we could pay off the best with Zurgo and Ojutai, is Sneak Attack. For red mana, we could put a creature from our hand on the battlefield, then that creature gets haste, and we sack it at the beginning of the next end step. Well, since we're already leveraging flying, right, as a dragon's deck, we might have a good chance of getting the dragon we sneak attack in to hit an opponent with haste. And then with Zurgo and Ojutai, we could bounce it back to our hand, stopping us from having to sacrifice it, and basically just gaming the system by going through the top three, getting a card and put it into our hand. I think Sneak Attack's probably one of the best cards we could pair Zurgo and Ojutai with to make sure that we could basically just free play these dragons for a red mana. Hopefully 3 of them in a turn, right? Each of them attacks a different player, hopefully gets in and then comes back to our hand. And now we're just netting benefits, right, from us doing this. But I think we also want to pay off the fact we have a ton of dragons laying around. Invasion of Tarkir is a battle I've always liked. And actually, Zurgo will trigger on you attacking a battle. Whenever it enters, we can reveal a number of dragons from our hand. When we do, it deals X plus 2 damage to any target, where X is the number of dragons we've shown. And then when it flips over, the Thundermaw deals damage anytime a dragon attacks, which is just really nice. Pick off creatures, have it go up players. There's a lot of options there. Sarkhan's a great Planeswalker for us because that +1 can add 2 mana to cast dragons, or you can just pitch one and draw one. A couple pretty great abilities, and we can get it up to 7, which is very easy to do because his only minus ability is the 7. We can make a bunch of dragon tokens. Dragonlord's Servant and Nogi and Sarkhan are all going to help reduce our dragon spells. You know, we don't have the natural ramp like you do in some of your Teamer or Jund, right? Or those types of dragon decks where you have the natural green ramp. So I think we're playing a little bit more on the reduction here, needing things like this to help us reduce our dragon spells when we actually want to hard cast them. Nogi will actually become a dragon if we have 3 or more dragons when it attacks. And Sarkhan, whenever a dragon comes in, it can actually become a copy of that dragon that came in, except its name is still Sarkhan, allowing you to get some really fun abilities like doubling up on Zurgo's ability if you wanted to do that. Raise the Palisade can bounce all non-dragons back to hand. Nice one-sided board wipe. Breaching Dragonstorm can get you start kind of pseudo-cascading through your library. Basically, you're cascading. You're kind of discovering for 8 or less off the Dragonstorm and allows you to go potentially hit something nice. And then returns back to our hand whenever a dragon comes in. And the Crucible Fire just buffing all of our dragons by +3/+3. Kindred Discovery is going to draw us a card whenever a dragon comes in or attacks. Really nice to stack on top of that, right? Zurgo and Ojutai ability. Mana Echoes is a card I've always liked in creature decks like this. Whenever a non-token creature of the type we choose, which obviously is going to be dragons, comes in, we just get a copy of it until end of turn. This is really nice. Obviously, for most of our dragons in the deck not being legendary means we can really take advantage of this, get that nice attacker this turn, even if we don't have a haste enabler out, and just get that damage. And then rolling Dragonstorm, right, drawing us 2 and pitching 1, and we get to bounce it back whenever there's a dragon. It's just going to help us dig through, even though I think Zurgo's ability is just going to do a better job at helping us dig, right? It's such a great ability, and it can even bounce itself. But there are other options there for us, right? But I've said it before on the show, and I'll say it again. No deck's ever complete. This is my version, 1.0 shot at Zurgo and Ojutai in a long time. And as we go into testing, I think I like the support pieces of the deck. The question could be, are there better dragons we could add to the list? I think we've got more or less the who's who of the dragons that are available that aren't over $40, right? We have things like Ancient Copper Dragon that we just can't afford for the price of what we normally do for the budget of this show. I do like to look at something like Guardian Scalelord. It says whenever this creature attacks, you return target non-land permanent with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is this creature's power. But the key thing about the Scalelord I like is its backup abilities. When it comes in, You can put a counter on target creature. If it's any other creature but this, it gets that ability until end of turn. If we're bouncing Scale Lord and putting it back in, we're handing out that backup ability to other dragons being able to rescue things back out of our graveyard. It just comes down to how often are we losing those pieces of the graveyard. We also have more haste enabler things like Rising of the Day. I think it just comes down to, do we see, how often do we see all of our pieces, and can we have our deck function the way we want it to? But let's do the thing we love to do on the show the most and get into our playtest. Remember, the goal of playtest on our channel is not to find magical Christmas land. It's not to show off our best plays, but it's to get in some game scenarios and see how our deck can function in some realistic scenarios. Here we're keeping a 3-lander with Carnelian Orb for a mana rock that gives a dragon haste if you cast it with it. There's the Talisman, another mana rock, and Curse Mirror, and then Sneak Attack. So we may not have very many dragons in our hand, but we've got a lot to do once we get there. There we see Stormscale Scion. It has Storm, so potentially make up copies of itself, and then buff Solar Dragons. Again, kind of a great one to bounce back if we could play multiple spells. And then Imrith can draw some cards. I think I kind of like just getting into the mana rock here. Again, we'd love to start deploying Zurgo and Ojutai as soon as possible. I kind of like just getting the orb in here. My thought there was going Sneak Attack and kind of setting it up, but I think at the end of the day, we got to kind of keep committing to the board and getting things down, because I can attack with Zurgo here, and I can get the look at the top 3. Just try to get us an attack that if we want to. We could also get the Sneak Attack down now if we want to, but I kind of like just getting Zurgo down here. We can attack somebody. I'm sure we'll have a nice attack in the air on turn 4, because I'm sure all of our 3 of our opponents aren't going to have flyers. We're going to look at the top 3, put one into our hand, and the rest on the bottom. So we see Meringue. Meringue's great. Hammerhead Tyrant's great to bounce some things. Steel Hellkite's a dragon I really like, especially if you're playing against token deck. You can hit them with Steel Hellkite and go for 0 and just nuke all their tokens. So I think in this scenario, if I'm playing against token deck at the table, maybe I take the Hellkite. Otherwise, I really like the Meringue, only because I can use its Omen ability, if I need to just draw a little bit. Zurgo would have haste for 2 reasons. One, it has haste, and then the orb, So, lots of options there. Again, we probably would have loved to have seen another land there, but I think that's A-okay. Zurgo should ideally hit someone again. We could get something like Imrith down, and it will have haste again because of the Carnelian Orb. We get something like Parapet Thrasher down and start dealing some damage and destroying some things, because it says whenever one or more dragons hit a player, choose one that hasn't been chosen. This would be 2 flyers. It'd be 2. I think obviously I'd want 4 damage each other opponent, and then the artifact maybe, just to hurt our opponents that little bit. I can't do like Curse Mirror plus Parapet, but could be pretty useful on a future turn. But both of these could hit our opponents and let us look at the top 3. So the first one sees Gainax on land of Thunderbane. I really like Gainax, but I just don't have any way to really profit off of it. So I think I got to go with the Training Center. We could play the Training Center this turn, because we didn't play a land this turn. That would leave me 2 mana. And then the second one, Soul Ring makes a ton of sense, Right, so now main 2, Training Center, Soul Ring. So now we've used that mana up, Thankfully, we haven't lost it. Got 3 mana. I could get the Curse Mirror in. My only thing there is Curse Mirror can become a copy of a creature until end of turn, except it has haste. Might not be a bad thing to copy the Thrasher with, really get all of its ability. I think that feels good. This turn, I guess we can get the Sneak Attack in, and now start using it, really taking advantage of it. That was only 4 mana. I've still got 4 mana left. I think I've had at least 3 red sources. Remember, I get to bounce back one of the dragons that hit each of the players. So I can go, Dracosaur, Meringue, Imrith, all on the Sneak Attack. Meringue can bounce the things. Each of them attacks one person. Zurgo and Parapet attack somebody else. And as long as nobody has flyers, I can bounce all 3 of these back and do my 3, look-throughs. The only problem with this mass Sneak Attack philosophy is we're going to end up running out of room for cards in our hand, My other thought was Sneak Attack this turn. We could... Curse Mirror is a copy of Parapet and just do that, and then maybe bring in Meringue and do that, and then you could still bounce the Curse Mirror because it's considered to be a creature, right? So you could bounce it with Zurgo's ability and have it come in next turn, right, as another dragon, right? But the nice part about that sneak attack, as long as they hit, they can get bounced back to avoid, right, that sacrifice, and then you're taking advantage of Zurgo's, look the top three as we just craft our hand, right, out of our top three. Yeah, that requires our opponents not to have flyers, but I think more than realistically, two of your opponents are probably not going to have flyers. I mean, flying decks are not super common in our game. Yeah, they are a little bit now, right? But the more recent, dragon decks. But like at an average table, I don't think all three of your opponents are going to have flyers. So I think you're going to pretty regularly have one way to go, right? To get, even if it's just sneaking attack in one dragon, I think you're going to have it. Here we're keeping a 4-lander with Scourge of Valkyrus, the Ancient Gold Dragon, and a Talisman. And then turn 1, we draw Carnelian Orb. Again, not a bad way to start. Turn 2, we see Astral Dragon. Again, a really fun one. Can help us copy the right things at the right time to get even better there. Here, I think it's just Carnelian, continue to support. There we see Duty Beyond Death, a way to protect our board. Here, I mean, I almost prefer Valkyrus. Would get me more damage off of Zurgo next turn since it has haste. But I guess the same thing could be true for Zurgo, because either of them deal the damage, right? So maybe Zurgo makes the more sense this turn. Attack, look at the top 3, raise, path. I guess raise is great for the one side, Boros Charm is great for the protection. I think I'm going to take the land just to be safe, that way in case we get dug too deep on, not seeing any lands. Still at 6 mana this turn. Again, the first dragon we play each turn can have haste. Kind of like the idea of getting Scourge in with haste. It's going to deal 2 to somebody with its ability. Have Zurgo and Scourge attack different people. Zurgo's trigger sees me. Probably Haven, just to be safe. I like Niv-Mizzet as an interesting option there. Molten, well, I think Dragon Tempest is the pretty obvious choice there. All right, just to get it in and get it going. I don't think I have any need to bounce Scourge of Valkyrus. And then as we come to our turn, right now we've got 8 mana. Play the Dragon Tempest, right? Now they automatically have haste, and we're doubling up on the Scourge of Valkyrus ability. Dragon Tempest is probably my single favorite target for Astral Dragon, just because it actually gives you basically 3 of them, just to like really start getting going. So this turn, I think, we could be something like Ancient Gold Dragon, it'd be something like Hammerhead Tyrant. It'll come in with haste, right? Deal some damage, and then when we cast future things, it could bounce things. We could set up a big score and draw a couple cards, but I don't really feel the need to as much right now because we've got a lot of value right on the board. So the question is, do we want a 4/3 with lifelink, or do we want a 6/6er in the air? I think probably just the Hammerhead Tyrants for it. So when the Hammerhead comes in, we have a Dragon Tempest and a Scourge of Valkyrus trigger for 3. So each of them are going to go off, right, dealing some damage. We attack, let's say all 3 of them hit and spark the ability. I guess I'll take the Rapid Hybrid. I think the big score is really useful at the beginning in the game when you don't have kind of your resources set up. Ooh, I like the Curse Mirror. It could be fun as a copy of Scourge of Valkyrus for a turn, right? To get some extra damage and all that in. Stalakite, Swords, and Clifftop. I guess we'll take the Clifftop. I'm kind of thinking of pitching the big score here. As much as I really like big score, I feel like we're kind of drawing, right, in the sense that we have all of our resources. So now this turn, what I really want to do is Astral Dragon. Let me think about this. I have 7, 8, 9 mana. It's my Astral Dragon, it's my whole turn. But here's my thought. Astral Dragon comes in. I make 2 copies of the Dragon Tempest as dragons. So when Astral Dragon comes in, I can actually put this on I could put its Dragon Tempest trigger on the stack and have its ability resolve first, making me 2 copies of Dragon Tempest. Both of those are going to come in. And when they both come in, they're going to see each other and they're going to see themselves. So now I have, on each of those Dragon Tempests coming in, for each of them, I have 4 triggers, the 3 Dragon Tempests and the Scourge of Valkyrus. So for each of them, they're dealing, that's 4 triggers of 6 damage for each of them. And then Astral Dragon comes in, and it has only 2 triggers, right? Because Scourge and Dragon were out when it came in. 4, I believe. But still, or no, it would be It would be 6, because I think it would check on resolution, right? Yeah, I think it would check on resolution. So you're just dumping out a ton of damage, haste, and I think this is where these dragon decks could be so potent, especially when you start giving them haste, is the damage they can put out in that one individual turn. I think it just goes to show how good Astral Dragon is as a card and why it's kind of bonkers that can be played in so many of these different archetypes of dragon decks. 4-lander here with Molten Echoes, Swords to Plowshares, and that Nogi to help reduce a little bit. I think the goal here is to get Nogi down early, right? Start reducing the cost of our dragons. This would lead to a turn 4 Zurgo, which we'd want to do. Attack with it, right? Use its ability. Ooh, I like all of it. I like the lands. I like Sarkhan. I think I'll just take a land. As much as I really like Sarkhan, it's never a bad idea to make sure we're getting some more things on board. All right, so all of our dragons cost 1 less. I think my choice this turn is what? Either Terror or Scourge. Both of them are non-creatures, so we could even look at doing something like Talisman plus Molten Echoes and set up for next turn and just have Zurgo attack. Dig us, I think the Maelstrom's the best of those 3. Because my thought now, with getting Molten Echoes in, is now I have 7 mana, all my dragons cost 1 less, so this is 4 and this is 4, right? So we do Scourge first. On ETB, it hits somebody for 3. The copy of Scourge comes in. Now we have 2 triggers of 4, right? And then that was just 4 mana. That was just 4, right? I said 7, right? Not 8. Yeah. So unfortunately, I'm 1 off on that. So if that would make sense to me, but no, it's only 7. I don't know why I had convinced myself it was 8 mana. Still think that's worth it for this turn. Take the attacks, probably 3 all around. Nogi can get in the air too, making itself a dragon. So I think it's probably 3 all around, or 3 triggers. Lavut Vara for a nice top end option, right? Making us those dragon tokens. Decanter would be very nice. Start giving us, right? And no maximum hand size, so as we're doing these, right, these triggers, we're not having to worry about what we take. They can offer makes a ton of sense, right? We still got 3 mana up, right? So we can do the Decanter, right? And then we can hold up that offer you can't refuse, maybe for somebody's removal, right? That goes away, but that's A-okay. And then now we come back to our turn. Now we have 9 mana, so we've got more than enough to play potentially multiple dragons. My thought was Terror of the Peaks. Both of these trigger. This one triggers for 4. This one triggers for 5. Unless we and stack the, because we should be able to stack the triggers. We also should be able to get some Terror of the Peaks ETB triggers. But that's one spell. The second cast being Storm the Scales, Scion. So this is coming in with a storm count of 1. So we're getting a copy of it from Storm Scales ability, and we're getting a copy of it from Molten Echoes. So now you have more Valkyrie triggers, more Terror triggers, and now this is buffing all of our dragons. All of them have, these 2 are going to have haste, these 2 won't. But it's kind of fine because now you're just, right, getting involved and getting in huge damage that turn. I think you'll probably, I would imagine, pick a player up with the Terror and the Valkyrie triggers, and then, pick the player up. I mean, you could probably just pick the player up you're the most worried about, and then you're probably just ruling right in the air against the other ones. Last playtest here, keeping a 3-land with Dragon Sword, Nogi again, Curse Mirror, and then Goldspan Dragon. Goldspan's a really interesting dragon because it makes a treasure on attack and on being targeted. But I really like Goldspan because then it taps your treasures for 2. There's a lot of options I could think here. I could see Nogi being the choice to get Zurgo and Ojutai down next turn. I could see Frostcliff Siege being the choice to target in a little bit better, but I think we'll just do Nogi and then play the Exotic Orchard, because now, right, we have no maximum hand size with the Reliquary Tower. We're not worried. Ooh. Astral Dragon could make copies of Frostcliff Siege, maybe, give us more of a buff, right? So the next turn here, we're out of lands. Dragons are costing 1 less. And Goldspan would be 4. and it comes in with haste. We're getting a treasure when it attacks. We don't know a ton to do after that. I'm just trying to think of what makes the most sense this turn. Like, I love the idea of getting something like Dragon's Horde down, but then we're really just like taking the turn off, right? At least with Goldspan, right? We're making a treasure for next turn, and we probably get to look twice here because unfortunately we're not in the area yet with Nogi. It's got to be 3. I like for Craig. I like Sarkin. Both of them add good mana. Same thing with the Talisman. Talisman could be another toppy for Astral Dragon if we need it. Same thing with Sarkin. Interesting. I don't know if I ever thought about that. We'll take the Talisman just to be safe on hedging our bets. Clear and Conquer, right, shutting down our opponents. But again, Soul Ring, another great choice for... Now I could sack this treasure now, put one of it into Soul Ring. So that would be a colored mana from the treasure, and then the 2 from that. My thought is either Talisman or Dragon's Horde is my thought, because it's 2 colorless and 1 colored, so I can't like game this too much. Like, I can't go with like Frostcliff Siege. I guess the Dragon's Horde, right? Don't want to waste that mana, and then there's nothing I can do with that one piece of mana. But as we come back to our next turn, right, 5, 6, 7, 8 mana. We've got a lot of mana. Astral Dragon's costing 5. Soul Ring could be a pretty fun target for it, getting a bunch of value. But I also think just as well that like Frostcliff Siege could be a ton of value for it, right? Just getting us extra buffs. You get to choose when they come in. So technically you could have one come in as Jeskai and the other one come in as Tamer. You know, we could have both come in as Jeskai just to draw us cards when we hit, right? Like, there's so many options with Astral Dragon in this scenario. I like Curse Mirror as a copy of Goldspan. That could be fun. Leaves me with 5 mana. Thinking 2 for that. We could get Imrith down. 4 is my thought. Make 2 treasures right on attack. One from Goldspan, one from the Curse Mirror copy of Goldspan. We get 3 copies of Hitting. Again, bunch of great options. Well, I guess we already have the Decanter. We already have the no maximum hand size, but it's fine. Well, that goes Carnelian. We'll take Sneak Attack, even though I think we're kind of past the point of Sneak Attack. And then Mountain Island. I guess we'll just take Pongify for some removal. I had no mana left this turn. Now, the fun part is I could bounce Curse Warrior or Curse Mirror if I want to, and have it come in as a copy of Goldspan again. I can basically keep getting a second copy of Goldspan. I guess no, it would have been a copy of a dragon. He would have been a dragon this turn too. But like, truthfully, I think we're probably just 6, 7. Oh, we probably should have taken the land, because then we could have Curse Mirrored and Astral Dragon next turn. But I think we're at that point where you kind of see where we're going. Like, trying to use these Haste Neighbors plus these bouncing things to take advantage. You see the Curse Mirror there with Goldspan. You see Astral Dragon. We could bounce back and, get a copy of that. I guess we'd probably want to get Frostcliff in first. So we could take another setup turn. I guess we could also Frostcliff plus Sneak Attack, and then sneak in the Astral, and then bounce it, right? Taking real advantage of that. You can see there's a lot of lines I really like with Zurgo Ojutai. I think there's a lot of fun here. You could make this deck better if you want to by adding better dragons. I'm not playing either of the Ancient Dragons, any of the Ancient Dragons from Baldur's Gate, just because they're too expensive, but all 3 of them are great in this strategy, coming in, hitting right away, letting you roll that d20, bouncing back to your hand, right? You're just talking about adding another probably $130 in budget to add all 3 of them. But I think you'd start to see where, making better dragon choices also could make the deck better. I just kind of wanted to show off the core of what the deck's trying to do, and then show you, where you can do that. But let me know what you think of Zurgo and Ojutai, and I will catch you on the next.